So one of the things that drives me nuts is if I go out and shoot on a hot day and then all of a sudden, oh, the lighting changed on me. Oh, I gotta adjust this exposure and the white balance. All right, there we go, looking better. Okay, take two. Basically, when cameras overheat while I'm trying to shoot, drives me nuts. Most cameras have a operational temperature maxed out at 40 degrees Celsius. That is how much in Fahrenheit?
104 degrees.
104 degrees Fahrenheit. Don't you hate how hard it is to calculate? Take the Celsius, multiply it by 6, divided by the speed of light or whatever. But basically 104 degrees Fahrenheit is the cap. So 104, that's pretty reasonable. It's a pretty hot day. I think the hottest temperature I ever felt was in Las Vegas. I think it was around like 115 when I was there. You're like in this nice air-conditioned casino, and as you walk out, the doors open, it's just like hot air. It's terrible. But since the manufacturers suggest 104 degrees Fahrenheit, we're gonna stick to that. So I got this incubator. A lot of people use this to hatch chicken eggs or reptile eggs. I use it to overheat cameras. So let's do this. Here's how I want to do my experiment. I want to simulate, having this camera in an air-conditioned car or something. You're driving out to a location and then you hop out of the car. It's hot outside. How long can you record for? So that's what I'm going to do with this incubator. I'm going to preheat this to 104 degrees. I'm going to leave this in room temperature, so about 70 degrees. Hit record, throw it in there, and let it overheat. See how long that takes. Now I'm going to assume that since the camera starts off nice and cool, it's going to take longer for it to hit the overheating temperature, right? First time it did that, it overheated and shut down in 22 minutes. So now the camera's turned off in the incubator for a whole hour, and then we start it again. But this time the internal temperature's already pretty warm, so I assume that it wouldn't last nearly as long. So since the first time I did it, it lasted 22 minutes, I was gonna assume like maybe this time it'll last 10 minutes before it overheats. But it actually lasted quite a bit longer. And then I turned it off, left it in there for another hour. So by this point, it's been just cooking in there for a couple hours now. I hit record again, and then this time again, longer. And now I realize I have no idea how these cameras work and how they overheat. Maybe one of you guys could explain that to me, because like all these question marks, boop, 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 kept popping up over my head. Good news about the Sony a6600 is that in room temperature, it doesn't really overheat. I left it rolling in 4K for hours, and I didn't even see a warning sign. But I do always extend out this display here because this does produce quite a bit of heat, so it's always going to last longer when it's projected out like that, opposed to right up against the body. All right, so I've collected a little bit more data here. I feel like a scientist. I ran the same test again with the a6600, and this time it overheated at 26 minutes, which is similar to the first time, which was 22 minutes, right? So after it turns itself off, I leave it in there for another hour, and this time it lasts 43 minutes. Literally to the minute. It's the same exact amount of time it took the first time we did this test. So this is consistent. So after it cut itself, I let it sit in there for another hour and 20 minutes. So 20 minutes of just extra simmering in the heat. And this time it lasted an hour and 37 minutes. See, this is interesting because that kind of shows that the longer it's been sitting in the heat, the longer it will last before it overheats. Is this experiment bad for the cameras? Am I ruining this? I don't know. But technically, I'm still within the operating range of this camera. But let's move on to a different camera for a second. This is the Canon EOS R. This is kind of like my daily driver. And I've actually never had any issues with this camera overheating. So I threw that in the incubator, and for 4 hours, I was just letting it sit in there, and I was filming at 4K at the highest bit rate possible. I was trying to get this thing to overheat, but not even a little warning popped up. So this is the type of camera that you could really depend on to not have overheating issues. So this is the Sony FS7, Canon C300 Mark II, and Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. By the way, all three of these cameras, the operating temperatures cap out at 104. So it's not like we're throwing these cameras in the oven. We're just really simulating a hot day. Let's start off with this Blackmagic. I have it hooked into a V-mount battery, and I'm just gonna start rolling it. It's in 4K ProRes 422HQ. All right, it's in time-lapse mode. So we're almost an hour in, and it's not having any issues at all so far. So I'm impressed. I honestly would have guessed probably about 45 minutes in, it would have started to have issues, but it's cruising. Now, one advantage this camera does have is that I am powering it externally with a separate battery, which is on the lower shelf. I'm doing that because the internal battery does not last long at all, and batteries, we all know, produce a lot of heat. So having it outside of the body, I think might be helping. And also, instead of shooting 6K RAW, we're shooting 4K ProRes. So I think I'm gonna bump it up to 6K RAW now. I mean, it's pretty warm to the touch, and I do wanna see how it handles if I'm powering powering it internally, that will probably generate a little bit more internal heat if it's powered off this battery. I'm constantly having to stop it and reformat and then restart the clip though, because in this mode, a 256 gig CFast card only lasts 16 minutes. So I'm constantly cycling it out. So the results are in. Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K is actually a tank. That's got to be the biggest surprise so far. I was pretty sure I was going to be able to get it to overheat, but I couldn't. It just kept going and going. But next up, C300 Mark II. I'm pretty confident that this can make it through it no problem. Let's go. Okay, hold up. So I just checked back on this and the temperature inside of here has gotten way higher. This is not good. I'm gonna turn this off. It jumped up to 111. So it's been in there for a while. Do the math right here. That's how long it's been in there. It's been recording continuously. I should have realized that this actually produces quite a bit of heat. So just it being in this little container, the temperature spiked way past what the incubator was doing. So this can clearly go past the 104-degree limit and still not have any issues. It's a good thing that I got this extra thermometer to throw into here instead of just relying on the one up here. Oh, it is showing me a little temperature gauge. It's just showing it as a yellow gauge. Man, I did not mean to put it in here and have it go that high. So I pulled up the manual and it says if that temperature icon appears in yellow, it just means that the internal temperature has reached a predetermined level. You can still continue using the camera. It's not until that symbol turns red until the camera itself needs to turn off. But even at 111 degrees Fahrenheit, it was still yellow. All right, let's do this FS7 now. I'm gonna keep a closer eye on that temperature gauge, make sure it doesn't get too hot. Barely fits in there. With the FS7, same situation as the C300 Mark II. It handles the heat with zero issues, but it does produce a lot of its own heat. So having it in a small container like that just spikes up the temperature, and I just pulled it out before it got any hotter. But again, I've used this FS7 in blazing temperatures before, and I've had zero issues. I used to do a lot of filming with the US military, and we would always find ourselves in the middle of the desert. It always sucked, and we always knew immediately which cameras would overheat and which ones would truck through it. All right, so now let's try these action cameras. I have the GoPro Hero 8 and also the Osmo Action. I do also want to try out the Insta360 but I don't have it on me at the moment, so I'll test that later. But I'm going to set both of these to 4K 60 frames per second. I do feel like the GoPro might have a bit of an advantage because on the 8, the mount is built in, so you don't really need a housing, opposed to most other cameras where you kind of need a housing to mount it anywhere. So most of the time, this is going to be in a housing. Most of the time, this is going to be able to breathe freely. So let's give it a shot. Now the results are in and I was wrong. The Osmo Action has a better heat tolerance even though it's in this enclosure. From room temperature, the GoPro lasted 17 minutes and 20 minutes in, the Osmo was still recording but the screen shut off just because it was getting hot. And then finally at 25 minutes, it eventually had to shut down and stop recording. So not only does it record longer, but it also has that feature to where it shuts off the screen when it gets too hot. Gave them both an hour to cool down in the incubator. This time the GoPro lasted 12 minutes. The Osmo Action screen turned off at 11 minutes and then shut down at 15 minutes. So with these cameras, if they've been sitting in the heat, they're not gonna last as long, which seems more logical, right? I still don't know what's up with the A6600. Now let's try the Canon M6 Mark II compact mirrorless camera at 4K. So this camera was a bit of an unusual case. I first tested it in room temperature, overheated in 50 minutes, right? So it's not that great for room temperature. I let it cool down, take it from room temperature, throw it in there. Again, overheats in 50 minutes. So then I let it simmer for an hour in there, like all the other cameras. Hit it again, 50 minutes. And that really makes me wonder how this camera knows when it's overheating. Is it just like a timer? Because it's just so consistent, 50, 50, 50, 50, 50. So yeah, I find that a little bit weird, but at least it's predictable. I do also want to test out my iPhone 11 Pro Max. So I just threw it in there. How long do you guys think it's gonna last? I'm going to predict 35 minutes, but here's how long it actually lasted. Am I right? Am I close? I also did test out the big brother of this Canon M6 Mark II, the Canon 90D, and this thing just ran for hours and hours. No signs of overheating. It just kept going at 4K, no problem. Probably because it's a bigger body itself. It can just dissipate the heat faster. So the 90D, just like the EOS, are really solid. Now, like I said, almost all cameras have an operational range from 0 to 40 degrees, and that's in Celsius. Fahrenheit conversion, right here. But there was one camera that had a wider operational range. You guys want to take a guess at which camera that was? Instead of it being from 0 to 40, it was -20 to 45 degrees Celsius. So again, Fahrenheit conversion. I can't do that math, dude. Here it is. If you guessed Airy Alexa, you are absolutely correct. You gotta love Airy for that. They say it's completely stable and up to that temperature. So this would have no problem in here, but I can't fit it in there. So I was contemplating throwing our red in there, but this produces so much heat. It would probably melt this incubator. You really wanna let the airflow come out of here. It's like an exhaust pipe. But yeah, let me know in the comments if there's other cameras you want me to throw in here to figure out if it overheats or not. And that's it for today. See you guys later.